Hi, everyone. This is Lawrence Watkins, and welcome to the Financial Juneteenth 5. These are my 5 favorite articles as it relates to Black finance, wealth, and business for today, November 3rd, 2020. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. So the very first article today, and just as to forewarn you, I took the 5 longest articles ever, and I guess compiled them into 1 day's worth of content and show. So bear with me, but I found that all five of these articles were very deep and very rich with information as well. But this first article today comes from McKinsey and Company. So McKinsey is the leading, I guess, management consulting firm in the nation. And the article is entitled Building Supportive Ecosystems for Black-Owned U.S. Businesses. So this is part article, part research report, I believe, in regards to this subject of ecosystem building for Black entrepreneurs. Healthy Black-owned businesses could be a critical component for closing the United States Black-white wealth gap, which we project will cost the economy $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion per year by 2028. Black business owners have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic-linked economic downturn, partly because they were more likely to already be in a precarious position, including more likely to be located in communities with business environments that are more likely to produce poor business outcomes. Here's an interesting stat. I believe I've talked about this before. About 58% of Black-owned businesses were at risk of financial distress before the pandemic, compared to about 27% of white-owned businesses. The pandemic also contributed to tipping 41% of U.S. Black-owned businesses into closure from February to April 2020. There was an interesting chart in here in terms of Black Americans hold significantly less business equity than their white counterparts, and it shows just the difference between white equity holders, Black equity holders, and also Hispanic. And as of 2019, Black and Hispanic equity holders seem to be neck and neck. In the past, Black business owners were significantly laggards and lagging behind, even that of Hispanic business owners as well. Black-owned businesses also tend to earn lower revenues in most industries and are overrepresented in low-growth, low-revenue industries such as food service and accommodations. If existing Black-owned businesses reach the same average revenue as their white-owned industry counterparts, the result would be an additional $200 billion in recurring direct revenues, which could equal about $190 billion in additional GDP, or roughly 1% increase in 2017 GDP numbers. And that was excluding also publicly held companies. So they were just talking about private, white-owned businesses versus private Black-owned businesses as well. But it goes back to a silver lining. So a silver lining of COVID-19 and the racially charged violence of 2020 may end up being that some large companies have now launched programs to support Black-owned businesses. A major social media company dedicated $40 million in grants to support Black-owned businesses with 50 or fewer employees. A financial services firm pledged $1.15 billion, including $350 million in procurement spending on Black-owned businesses to close the racial wealth gap. So if you have a Black-owned business or you are thinking about starting a business, this might be a great time for you to do so if you especially have a good business-to-business idea, or you have something to sell to these large corporations who are now allocating more money to Black-owned businesses. This next section talks about the barriers to business building for Black entrepreneurs. Throughout the business building process, Black business owners face economic, market, sociocultural, and institutional barriers, which are all linked to racial discrimination in the United States. Economic barriers relate to disempowerment and the cost of low starting levels of capital for individuals, families, and communities. Market barriers result from unaddressed needs, often related to challenges of access to capital, expertise, and service. Sociocultural barriers encompass the biased and exclusionary ways in which Black entrepreneurs are more likely to be blocked from gaining social capital, such as helpful relationships that make up business networks, And finally, institutional barriers are supported by the systems in which Black-owned businesses operate and include factors such as basic or as basic as their locations. Excuse me. So to repeat those, this report talks about 4 different barriers. So economic barriers, market barriers, social cultural barriers, and also institutional barriers as well. Let's see. What's there? I think there might have been a couple of different additional quotes in here. Yeah, there we go. They talk about interventions here. So insufficient access to capital, knowledge, and support. This is more of a policy recommendation. Ultimately leaves many Black entrepreneurs less economically mobile and limits the potential of entrepreneurship to grow wealth for Black families and communities. Interventions to tackle these barriers will require public, private, and social sector stakeholders to evaluate current business ecosystems and rebuild them to be equitable and more supportive of Black business owners. And then it talks about implement policies and procedures for equitable outcomes. Policymakers, industry groups, affinity groups, and coalitions of stakeholders could enforce laws and policies aimed at preventing inequitable processes and outcomes as well. And then last but not least, enable equitable access to capital to overcome economic barriers. Black-owned SMBs need direct investment in kind, equity contributions, including grants, subsidies, loans, and revenue, and participation agreements as well. So that's enough about this article today. But I found it to be very, like I said, long, but that's good. That's okay, but insightful as well. So if you want to read this full article, please make sure you head over to McKinsey.com. And the article is entitled Building Supportive Ecosystems for Black-Owned U.S. Businesses. The next article comes from Forbes, so Forbes.com. Survey exposes gaps in Black ownership of life insurance. So Judy Hopkins had quite a bit to say about this particular issue. She's the head of legal at Haven Life, which I believe is an insurance company. Today, Blacks also see life insurance as a way to pass on generational wealth. A new survey from Haven Life shows that 22% of Blacks value life insurance as a way to pass along generational wealth, compared to only 8% of white respondents. Judy is quoted saying in the article, "Remember, when you think about Black communities, it is well documented that they have been deliberately discriminated against for centuries regarding all sorts of access points for accruing generational wealth, from housing discrimination to the GI Bill to limiting education opportunities. This lack of opportunity compounds over time, and this could be why many studies have shown that Black individuals tend to view or purchase life insurance as a means to build generational wealth than compared to other races who have no other reasons for purchasing life insurance." So they're not really looking to build generational wealth, other groups of individuals. They're really just looking to pay death benefits and any types of outstanding debts that a person may owe once they die. But if we keep going a little bit further, another point the article makes is further accentuating the differences. The survey says 37% of Black Americans believe the purpose of life insurance is to shield their families from unpaid debt, compared with 64% of white Americans. Overall, burial cost, and final expenses rank as the top reason that Americans own life insurance, with transferring wealth as number 2, according to data released in 2020 by industry-funded groups like LIMRA and also Life Happens. The article touches on the price of coverage. A study released in June by LIMRA and Life Happens indicated that Americans consistently overestimate the cost of life insurance. Along those lines, Haven Life survey found that Black Americans without life insurance thought the cost of coverage was 30% higher than white Americans without life without life insurance did. So basically, Black Americans thought the price was 30% higher than white, and the sample size was those individuals who did not currently own life insurance. But it's interesting that despite any of the concerns or confusion about the cost, 8 in 10 of the Black Americans surveyed by Haven Life reported having life insurance individually or through work, compared to 7 in 10 white Americans as well. And finally, the article talks about the things that you need to assess if you are trying to determine how much coverage you actually need. So add up your it gives 3 steps: add up financial obligations you want to cover, subtract assets that your family could use for those expenses, such as savings and existing life insurance, and the difference is the life insurance that you actually need. So this article came from Forbes, and I believe it was released yesterday. So yesterday morning. The next article today comes from Inside Philanthropy. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Okay. It says why Bloomberg is investing in Black doctors. And this article is talking about Mike Bloomberg and his recent investments to some Black medical schools. I'm going to need to zoom out so I can read this a little bit better. Bloomberg Philanthropies recently made the gifts totaling $100 million to Charles Drew University of Science and Medicine, Howard University College of Medicine, Meharry Medical College, and Morehouse School of Medicine. The immediate goal of this cash infusion is to ease students' debt, but the larger long-term goal is more sweeping and ambitious: to increase the number of Black doctors in the U.S. and the overall health and prosperity of Black Americans. The donation to historically Black medical schools is the first large investment by Bloomberg Philanthropies in its new Greenwood initiative. Of course, it's named after the Greenwood district of Tulsa, Oklahoma. The foundation created it to boost Black American families' generational wealth and counter systemic underinvestment in Black communities. But Bloomberg is the first and largest philanthropy to focus specifically on historically Black medical schools since the killing of George Floyd as well. There's a stat in here. In 2018, Black people died at a higher age adjusted rates than white people from 9 of the top 15 causes of death, according to the New York Times. Black newborns are also 3 times as likely to die as white newborns. COVID has hit African American communities particularly hard. Black people are 3 times more likely to contract the coronavirus as white people and twice as likely to die of COVID-19. Statistics also demonstrate that even though only 5% of American doctors are Black, they can make a tremendous difference. Research shows, for example, that Black men are far more likely to get preventative care when under the care of a Black doctor. The article then goes on to talk about the links between health and wealth. The need for more Black doctors the need for more Black doctors tied into an issue Mike Bloomberg raised on the campaign trail during the Democratic primary: the tremendous deficit in Black generational wealth. But the health status of Black people plays a role. Our higher mortality rate and shorter lifespans make it hard for Black families to secure wealth and transfer it to their heirs. I believe that was a quote by Garnisha Izendario, who is with the Greenwood Initiative as well. And last but not least, it talked a little bit about student debt and how student debt for medical professionals, for doctors, can be up to the median amount is $200,000. So $200,000 is the median student debt to become a doctor. And that discourages a lot of Black people from actually applying to medical school. This gift, though, will allow us, so the Greenwood Initiative, to provide scholarships of up to $100,000 of medical students currently enrolled in receiving financial aid over the next 4 years as well. So that's a little bit about the article, or about this initiative. So congrats and thanks to the Bloomberg Initiative for investing in this type of philanthropy. The next article, I'm going to save that one for last. The next article that I want to talk about it comes from the Brookings Institute, which is a liberal think tank, I would say. And it's talking about navigating race and injustice in America's middle class. So the article states, so first, their definition of the middle class is individuals are individuals in the middle 60% of household income distribution with annual household incomes between $40,000 and $154,000. And if you look at that particular group, about 59% of the middle class is white, 12% is black, 18% is Hispanic, and 6% is Asian. So in a Brookings study, so this was more of a qualitative study, and they were worried, or they were focusing on, I guess, focus groups and personal interviews with a broad range of middle-class Americans. And they also stratified them to make sure that no one group felt uncomfortable with, actually sharing their thoughts. So if I read that correctly, they were kind of, having, the white people talk amongst white people, the black people talk amongst black people, and so on and so forth, so they can get to more truth into the answers that they actually talk about. So for Black and Hispanic middle class individuals that were in the group, many said they experienced much disrespect and discrimination in the workplace that was very prevalent. Black women described how they had to restrain their emotions and opinions out of fear of retaliation or conflict, while also working harder to be given a fair chance. As Patricia, a Black woman who works in IT, describes, I got to work harder. I have to work hard. I have to bust my kneecaps and ankles just for somebody to give me a chance. I have to not respond the way someone would expect for me to respond so that they can respect me. Nobody respects women, and especially Black women. So that was the thoughts from a Black woman working in the IT space. Black and Hispanic individuals attested to racism in their everyday lives, whether stereotyping by their coworkers, discrimination in higher education, or racial profiling in the criminal justice system. This is a quote by, I believe, a Black man, or let me see. One man tied crime to economic inequality and racism, explaining. So I don't know if this person was Black or white. Given his quote, I assume it was a Black man, but let's just see here. Just because I can't get a job, the bills don't stop coming. I can't get a job. My child's stomach is not going to stop rumbling. Another man chimed in. It's more profitable to keep us locked up and to keep this system rolling because because you're rented out as free labor. You're rented out for for-profit prisons, and there is a quota the police and system has to keep those facilities rented. My biggest thing is to keep my children out of their facilities. That was a very powerful quote. Leslie, a white woman from Las Vegas, though, she sees America very differently. So it states here, for some of the white people we spoke with, we heard anger towards perceived quote unquote quota filling, hiring practice, or attacks from the left. Some white participants resented being put into a racial category at all, while others feared they were on their way to becoming a minority in America. Leslie, a white woman from Las Vegas, stated, the culture has definitely shifted because in the 80s, I think being a white working American woman, a lot of people strive for that. And now we are definitely the minority. I feel like we're the minority and we're discriminated against, especially in the workplace as well. So she has, of course, a different feeling in regards to America, and what discrimination actually looks like, and what it is. But if you want to read more about this article, head over to the Brookings Institute, so brookings.edu. And the article is entitled "Navigating Race and Injustice in America's Middle Class." The last article that I want to go into today comes from Jacobin magazine. I think that's how you pronounce it. I used to call it Jacobin or something like that, but then I keep hearing it pronounced as Jacobin. But it's actually more on the left, more of a socialist type of publication. And I wanted to include this into the conversation about wealth today because a lot of my articles come from mainstream types of publications that really have a strong business focus, but this focus is a little bit different as it relates to wealth and finance. So the article is entitled, "A Liberal Moral Reckoning Can't Solve the Problems That Plague Black Americans." If we view the problems of poverty, healthcare, and criminal justice through a lens that filters out the political economic underpinnings of these injustices, informed by the language of moral reckoning, we may just end up with modest reforms at best and symbolic gestures at worst, when what we need is fundamental structural change. So they're all about changing the system from just a fundamental type of standpoint. One of the key theses was what I just mentioned, but to add on to that, although a Joe Biden victory would mean that working people will surely lose less ground than under a second Trump term, they are unlikely to make any substance gains either, hobbled by the commitment of the Democrats to neoliberalism, not to mention Trump's 3 U.S. Supreme Court judges appointed and more than 200 federal court appointments as well. Let's see what else that I found important here. So deflecting class politics. So the article states, if prior to summer 2020, the impact of Bernie Sanders on the Democratic discourse was cause for optimism, the efficacy with which centrist Democrats, so this is about centrist Democrats, centrist Democratic candidates Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden used identity politics to dispatch Sanders was cause for alarm. Attacking Sanders from the right via rhetorical left identity politic frameworks, centrist Democrats and even some progressives identified his platform as anachronistic class agenda that deflected attention from white racism and its consequences for Black. Sometimes I feel like I'm not smart enough to be reading Jacobin magazine, but basically what this is stating is, people on the left were getting a lot of hate from people in the center in regards to what they could and could not do, if elected president or congressman or whatever it might be, and how the progressive left's ideas were, actually bad for the country, that type of thing as well. But anyway, I found this article to be extremely interesting. If you want to hear what the left is thinking and socialists as it relates to, what the world needs to be doing and what the United States needs to be doing economically. And this affects, Black individuals as well. They go on to talk quite a bit about, Ta-Nehisi Coates, in his case for reparations, how it was kind of like soft and he wasn't really that demanding. And he was appealing to his centrist, Democratic, friends in terms of the piece as well. But you should read this article. It's long, like I said, but it's by Tori F. Reed. I think you'll get a lot of good things out of it. But that's it for today. I know this was a long one, so I apologize for that. But these were 5 really in-depth articles related to Black finance, wealth, and business for today, November 3rd. Please let me know what you think about all of the topics that were covered today. Also, let me know what you think about the FJT 5 segment in general, and if this is something that you would like for us to continue on in the future. Before you get out of here, please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to the Financial Juneteenth channel. And on behalf of Financial Juneteenth, my name is Lawrence Watkins. You all take care, be blessed, and have a wonderful day. All right, bye-bye. Today's video is brought to you by the Black Business School. At the Black Business School, we don't help you just climb the corporate ladder, we help you build your own as well. We provide a culturally relevant yet practical education in all things wealth building at an affordable price. So no matter if you want additional freedom in your day-to-day life, you would like to leave a legacy of generational wealth behind to your family and friends, or you just want additional security and stability going into your golden years of retirement, the Black Business School has courses and offerings for you. So head over to theblackbusinessschool.com to learn more. Take care and see you in class soon. Bye-bye.